Does the mic work by chance? I don't. Okay. I don't necessarily need it. However, I do like to be respectful to anyone who may have any hearing issues. So do you have any issues hearing me? Can wave your hand? If you couldn't hear me, you probably would not be able to wave your hand because you couldn't hear me. But I hope that if you cannot hear, you're able to move up closer or make an adjustment to be able to hear me. So we're going to go a little bit backwards in my presentation today because as I was chatting with someone while I was signing their bingo card, it gave me a great idea. So if we can, very quickly, we're going to start at the back, my left, your right side, and just introduce ourselves, first name and the company that you are representing today, or what brought you here. Take your pick. So, well, I'm your friend. Nice to meet everyone. And I did that because I was listening to someone talk through when we were doing bingo, just how quick it is. It's awesome to get to know each other, and then to hear a little snippet about, like, who's in the room? Like, who do I maybe need to connect with while I'm here? Who is someone I want to kind of pencil down? Who is a business that's in the Grand Strand that I didn't even know was here? Like, what do they do? What is that? And so that's just another connection point that we can utilize to say, how are we really leveraging opportunities when we get in rooms together? And that's not necessarily a part of what I was going to talk about, but it was something that sparked right in that moment of, we'll come to these things whether we came because we saw it online, we just thought it would be a good opportunity for us in our career. There was someone here, like myself, that you wanted to see, or someone on the panel, or you came because your job was sponsoring, or because your job was like, you can get off for a few hours and go to this, right? So, all right, I'm gonna do that, but how are you taking advantage of what is happening while you're in that room? How are you owning that space while you're there so that it is advantageous for you no matter the reason that you got here, how you got here, or if you put your Toyota in the Mustang line to get here. One great thing about this presentation is it's not going to necessarily mind or matter. They are just my speaking top points to make sure that I stay on task. However, there is not going to be much information on there for you to take away from, so don't worry about it. If it goes out and the screen times out or anything, you will not miss anything. So we are starting with self-assessment. So who are you, right? And I don't necessarily want you to think about that from a career perspective. I want you to think about that from, like, internally, who are you as a person? What sets your soul on fire? What sets your soul on fire at 5, at 15, when you were at the beginning of your career? I would like for you to raise your hand if you are 0 to 5 years at your current position. 0 to 5 years, raise them high. Okay, 5 years and over. 10 years and over, 15 years and over. All right, my 15 years and over people, can I get you to stand up real quick? You didn't know that you were going to have to participate, did you? Sorry. Disclaimer. I'd like for everybody to be a part of this. All right, is there one thing that when you were that 0 to 5 that you wish someone would have told you? Just in the room, as we think about going back to that original question of who are you, and how does that align with what you are doing today? And sometimes it is a direct alignment, and sometimes it is not. But either way, it's still important, right? Because at the end of the day, our jobs, we want to be fluffy, and I'll use Instagram as a reference because I say this a lot to my clients of, like, we want to be fluffy and have this wonderful daily routine and just be so in love with our job or even our company for my entrepreneurs in the space. But I'm willing to bet if anyone in here is like me, I don't necessarily dream of working every day, but I have to pay these bills and keep everything rolling. And so even though I do live a very purpose-driven life, if there was an opportunity to not do any of these things and the things still happen, I would take that, right? I would take that and I would actually run with it. I would still find very purpose-driven things to do, but I don't know that they would include the early mornings, the late nights, the meetings, the emails, the text messages, the notifications on the watch. I just don't think that they would include all of that. However, because of who we are and where we are, it is important that we align that with what we are doing. And sometimes we think about that, and that means a career change. There's nothing to be afraid of with that. Or it says, how do I grow in this space if I desire to grow? Because something I think that we don't take into account enough is that it's okay to be okay in the now, right? It's amazing to have short-term goals, long-term goals, upside-down goals. We're going to talk about strategic planning in a little while, and that's going to be all up in there, right? But essentially, if you are happy with your day-to-day, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Every day, we don't have to wake up thinking like, oh my goodness, what's going to be next? Am I growing in this company? What are my kids going to be doing in 5 years? Like, what is going to happen? That does not have to be our everyday thought, because oftentimes that drives us into anxiety and depression and overworking ourselves for absolutely no reason, because we are too busy worried about the future that we may not even be working on the now enough to get the things that we're worried about, right? Because we're so worried about those things, we're so worried about getting there that we're not even taking in what today is, or the fact that there was a time, whether it was yesterday, whether it was last month, whether it was last year, that we desired to be where we are today. So how important is it to really think about and be appreciative of, and also make sure that we're leveraging what today looks like? Next thing is, what do we desire, right? Talking about that, thinking about that, putting that to pen to paper, or if you're techie, putting that in iPhone notes, Google Docs, iPad notes, whatever that looks like for you as we get ready to go into what does the strategic plan of our life look like. We are in charge of that, right? If we believe in a higher being, then of course that is also incorporated, but for the most part, we are in charge of what that looks like. And yes, it says on the first thing of strategic planning, it sucks, right? It sucks because essentially we are building out something that may or may not happen. We are building out something that inevitable things are always going to come and impact, right? So we, on the most simplistic level, we plan a picnic. We're on the planning committee for the picnic, whether it's for our job, our family, whatever. We are planning the picnic, and then it rains. What were we going to do about it? Right? Absolutely nothing, right? Or the catering company calls, they're supposed to deliver the 500 chicken wings at 9 a.m. It's 8:42. You're like, oh, wow. They're not early. It's 8:54. And you're like, oh, wow. It's still not 9, so I'm not all the way upset. Okay, it's 9:03. Maybe there's an issue. So we give them a call, right? We give them a call. Nobody answers, right? It's 9:08. Still no answer. Still no text back. We're trying to get in contact. We're missing 500 chicken wings. So now we have a decision. We make the cookout work with the sides that we have, and it is now very vegan and vegetarian friendly. Or we cancel the whole cookout simply because the caterer dropped the ball, the 500 chicken wings aren't there. We walk around the cookout with an attitude. We're upset with the world. It's our job to pick which one we choose, but at the end of the day, there's nothing we can do to control said caterer, right? We don't have that person's address. We have a phone number that they're not answering, but we can't go there, right? We can't go to their house, and if we do, and the 500 chicken wings are either frozen or were never purchased, there's still nothing we could do. So I use that example to make you think about what are some of the inevitable things that happen in our lives. Things change. You may lose a job. Someone may pass away in your family. Someone may get ill. Management may change at your job, so you keep the job, but then you're like, this is not the boss I signed up for. This is not the environment that I'm used to. You may get to keep, let's say the job gets, your company gets purchased, right? And they're like, you're no longer this, but we're not going to fire you, so you're going to do this. And you're like, this is not what I signed up for. But I looked at my account, and I still got to come tomorrow. So what am I going to do? And what in the world does all this have to do about strategic planning? Be dedicated to the goal, but not as dedicated to the path that it takes to get to the goal, right? The path, all of those things may come into that. And that doesn't matter at what level, whatever level we are at in our career. We may be at a point in our career where we're like, I thought I would be further. I didn't even think I'd be working here anymore. I didn't think I'd be at this point in my company anymore. I didn't think this would look like this. But something happened that we all can resonate with. What was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? We're still in it. Who knows? It just depends on who you ask when you think about COVID-19. things happen, things change. I'm sure your short-term goals change. I'm sure your long-term goals change. I'm definitely sure your day-to-day goals changed in March 2020, right? And we just all had to roll with the punches. So does strategic planning suck when a pandemic comes and nobody can do anything about it? Absolutely. Do it anyway. Be okay with it changing. Be okay with being a thought leader that's like, I can see either in this, beyond this, with this, but I'm not going to allow, as long as I'm alive, any of these things to deter me from what is the goal. I am just going to adjust said path. So what I'd like for you to do on your personal, whether it's on the back of your bingo sheet, your notepad, or whatever, I want you to take a few moments just to write down 5 key things that have happened thus far in your career that you did not expect to happen. Well, maybe somebody has 10. Right? I can actually write a dissertation. Right? So 5 things that you did not expect to happen. Leave you there. Beside that, under that, near that, 5 things that have been amazing thus far in your career. So when you think back to 18-year-old you who finished the wonderful experience of grade school up into the person you are today sitting inside of Dave & Buster's, what are 5 great things that have happened along your career journey? Volunteers that we had, is there anything that someone said that you may have possibly resonated with a part of their story? Whether it was a challenge that they had, whether them confessing not believing themselves, whether them having imposter syndrome. Nobody resonated with anything? Or it didn't work? Nobody resonated with anybody else's thing? Okay, there was some resignation there. That's good. It would be remiss of me to insult anyone's intelligence to go through what strategic planning is. Google, ChatGPT, do whatever makes you happy in your spare time to build out a strategic plan. My only advice and my charge to you all is to ensure you have one and you document it. Why? Because a lot of times we're like, I don't remember my wins. I don't remember my challenges. I don't remember the goal I set for myself in 2019 because of all the things that have happened in the last 4 years. I don't even remember. Are we still in 2019? So I'm challenging you to have that as a guiding principle. If you have gone to school at any level, whether that's high school, trade school, college, master's, doctorate, whatever, you may have had some sort of beginning of the class, some sort of syllabus, some sort of blueprint that you were able to follow to go from step to step to step. No matter what changes and challenges happened in there or what made you divert from that plan, there was a guide. What happens when we become professionals and we enter into our lives, a lot of times we don't build guiding documents for our lives. So even those of us in the room that are not entrepreneurs, we're career professionals, we are still the business owner of ourselves, which is our life. And our job is our one and only client. And then we have our children and our families and the things that we enjoy doing and all of those other elements that I would like to call departments. But we are all managing something, whether we own the company that we work for or we simply own our lives. And so it is very important for us to have plans, short-term, long-term goals built into that and make them quantifiable. Everybody, I'm going to assume SMART goals, we know what those are. Once again, not insulting the intelligence of professionals, but let's not be professionals and then in our personal lives act like we're idiots. Because we do that a lot. I want to make more money, quantify it. I want to make 10% more than I did. I want to make 25% more. I want to save more. How much is more? Do you want to save $5 more than last year, or do you want to save 500 more or 5,000 more? Quantify those goals. In the next few years, I might look for a job. Is that 3 to 5 years? Is that 5 to 7 years? For my more seasoned career professionals, okay, I'm wanting to scale back and start to prepare for retirement, so I'm going to make some changes in my life. I'm going to meet with my financial consultants. I'm going to have some conversations. When are you going to do those things? What is happening there, right? So if we don't ever quantify our goals, if we don't dive deeper as to what that looks like, it'll be 5 years later and we're saying, doggone it, I said I was going to save more, and this thing still looks the same way it did. Or I said I was going to work out more if that's a personal goal, but what is more? Is it that you do it no times a week, so 1 or 2 times is more? Or is it that you already do it 2 times a week and 5 times a week is more? Right? So quantify those goals as you're building out your plans. That's my challenge to you. My challenge was not to teach you how to do that. That is something you can work on yourself. However, be specific in those goals and make sure that they honor who you are. And so though I may have resonated with something Nick said, or though I may resonate with something Carrie said, or anyone in the room, my goals are still for Tabitha and your goals are still for you. And so I can't be, you can't be, we can't be tainted by the fact that maybe my goal doesn't, maybe Travis is like, that's a crazy goal, but it's important to me, right? And I don't care that it's crazy to you. Like it doesn't necessarily matter to me. 3 key points here. Network, develop, and document. Network. What do we do today? Network, right? Why is networking important? You never know what can happen, right? And relationships can be situationally transactional. I may not be meeting you simply because I want an opportunity for you. I'm meeting you in a genuine intent. We're having a genuine conversation, and there may be a later date or time that transaction happens, right? But if I never network, if I never make genuine connections, when I need that transaction to happen, whether that's a new job, whether that's a reference, whether that's someone I can say that I know in the Grand Straight Young Professional, whatever it is, if the networking never happens, we don't have that, right? If you are in a career right now and you're like, I really enjoy this industry, I want to know more beyond my company, or I want to know more beyond this position. What are the options? Are you a member of any of the professional organizations that are associated with that industry? Are you networking with other professionals? Do you have a mentor? What does that mentor's profile look like? Are you intentional with that mentor? Are you intentional with sponsorship and looking for people that can possibly put you in spaces that you may not even know exist? So what does your personal board of directors, if you will, look like? You're like, personal board of directors? What is she talking about? What are the people that are in your corner? What do they look like and what is their profile and how are you able to leverage that? You're not using them. There's nothing wrong with meeting people for transactional purposes if you are doing that with genuine intent, right? Develop yourself, investing in yourself. Like I said, professional organizations, conferences, workshops, seminars, continue to keep yourself fresh as an industry professional, whatever that means for you, because from the beginning, it's okay to be okay with who you are today. And so you may not want to be the CEO of the company. You may not want to be a manager. You may not want to be a supervisor. You may not want to be anything else but what you are today. However, you want to ensure that your skills are fresh because everything changes. The world changes. Things may change. You may want to look at what does your industry, what does the increase of technology do for your industry and what could it potentially do for the position that you have, right? Because if you're aware of that, you're like, oh, what I do may not even exist in 10 years. So maybe I do need to take a refresher course. Maybe I do need to learn something else. Maybe I need to learn how I leverage AI in my position. It may not replace me, but I may need to know how to use it. Maybe I should get on LinkedIn and make sure that I'm maybe posting an article, maybe posting a status, maybe liking something, just so that I'm engaging in that space. I don't have to become the next LinkedIn famous person in my industry, but maybe it is important for me to be there. Just in case something happens here and I need to reposition myself, I've at least developed some sort of a network in that space. I've at least developed some sort of presence in that space. Last one on this slide, and not least, is documenting that, right? Who has annual evaluations? Who goes into those knowing what you brought to the company? Who goes into those knowing what you're going to ask for? Who goes into those knowing what questions you have? Who goes into those knowing what does this look like for my career? Like how am I positioning myself? I see the hands kind of got few as we went along, and that's okay. But document those things. And even if it's not for your annual evaluation, especially to my entrepreneurs in the space, or those of you who may not have to go through those, how are you documenting that for you? We began with who am I? And some of the things that we achieve and some of the things that we do, whether that's personally or professional, they are a part of our journey. But if we don't document them, it's easy to forget, right? Our brains continue to get older and we're like, wait, I did get that award. Wait, I did lead that project. Wait, I did get on that subcommittee. Oh, wait, when I was working with that particular client or on that particular portfolio, I did have a challenge. We worked through it, but I'd love to know from my supervisor's perspective, did we work through it in a way that was best practice? Or is there another way that we can do it? Is there someone else in the company that I can ask some questions? Have you ever had this challenge, right? But if I don't document that issue, if I don't document the things that are happening, I don't know. Because I forget, life goes on, things happen, and we keep on moving. So if we aren't documenting those things, and once again, whether that's writing it, a journal, traditional pencil and paper, our iPhone notes, or our Android, do Androids have notes or notepad or sorry, don't know. There's no Android slander, I just have no clue. But whatever that looks like for us as we document that. The hard truth, as I get close to the end, is unhappiness is ugly, things happen, and we can see it no matter how hard we try to hide it, right? So if you're unhappy at home, your colleagues probably see that. You're probably not masking it. And I'm not challenging you to go and tell your colleagues all your business. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you have to go in and say, today's a hard day, today's a bad day, this is a challenging day. What I'm saying is put as much time and talents as we put into everyone else in our careers and all the things into ourselves so that we are able to identify those things at home before we even leave to go to the job or before we even log in if we're working remotely. Because now we've at least identified, like, I'm really having a challenging day. I'm really having a challenging time. My parents are aging. My kid is sick. Whatever might be happening. Something broke down in the car. It's an unexpected expense. And it's just really having a challenging time. If you're leading people, you're like, these people have all lost their minds, right? And I'm frustrated. Whatever that frustration is, identifying that frustration helps us to pull out the hard truths, the ugly truths, the unhappiness, the things, so that we are able to be better humans in these professional spaces. We can't leverage any of the networking opportunities if our brain is too clouded with all of the foolery that's going on, right? We can't be present for whoever we're responsible for being present for if we are not identifying within ourselves what works, right? So I can stand up here and be like, oh, do this, do that, third for your career, and then what happens if something blows up, right? That's not the thing. Work on yourself, identify things, be honest, right? Be honest. Being honest doesn't mean you're telling everything. It's just that you're honest. If I'm in my one-on-one with you and I'm like, look, I'm really not here. Travis and I had a meeting scheduled yesterday, and I said, look, the world is crashing all around me, and my brain is not even thinking about this agenda. Like, can we have like 5 minutes of personal time? 5 minutes of personal time. We said we weren't even going to go into the agenda. We subconsciously went straight into it anyways. But I allowed myself that space to be like, whew, right now, I don't have it, right? And so maybe that's not something you want to do with a colleague, but maybe you need to do it with yourself in the mirror before you go into that. Because the longer we hold on to those things, or the longer we let that just manifest up inside of us, the easier it is for it to bleed on people who did not cut us, right? They did nothing to us. It is not their fault. All of the baggage that we're carrying they're not carrying it. And so us putting that on them is really unfair to the people that we have to work with. Can anybody agree? Has anybody been at the butt end of someone who's like, they're going through something that is beyond this job, right? Anybody identify with that? Like, that's something is not there. And so it's so important. And I wanted to kind of lead and live and end in that space of making sure that we identify those hard truths, regardless of all of the other things that we're working on to develop ourselves as amazing professionals. How are we working on ourselves as humans? High school, 2009. Anybody ever heard of Lakeview? Yeah. Go Gators. Graduated from Lakeview High School in 2009, went to Coastal, graduated from Wall College of Business in 2013. I majored in business with focus hospitality, resort, tourism, and I began my career in the hospitality field. I was a team lead for McDonald's, Waffle House. I worked in guest services, if you will, for Marriott. I was trained through their customer service experience, and I worked at Sheraton Convention Center. So I graduated 2013. I had a job at one of the Britain properties here, Myrtle Beach, as a shift supervisor. About 5 months in, I was like, this is not what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Because hospitality, very similar to like healthcare, like it just never closes. And there was some work-life balance that I was desiring that I did not see in my strategic plan of that happening. So I was like, ooh, this is not working. One of my mentors, he was a higher ed professional. He called, he had an opportunity in his office for a grad assistantship that was 100% tuition coverage. I just had to move to South Florida. So I was like, sure. Went and took the GRE like the next week, applied to the school. I did horrible on GRE because I did not study because I just took it the next week. So I drove. I convinced my best friend, very good convincer, convinced my best friend that we should drive 10 hours for my grad school interview because I was like, my GRE sucks. My grade point average from college was pretty good. It was actually great, but they were a very test-heavy school. So I was like, I gotta go blow these people away in the interview. She was like, we can do a Skype. I said, oh no, I'm coming to Florida. Like, see you in a little bit. 10 hours, but a little bit. So we drove, blew them away in the interview, got accepted, went to grad school. So I lived in South Florida for 2 years. While I was there, I worked at the institution I was attending and also as a corporate trainer for Outback. So I was on a tail of two ends of, do I want to continue my career in hospitality? Do I want to work in higher education? Do I want to be a researcher? I just really didn't have a clue, but I was 22 and I told my parents, just trust me, because I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out. I want to do whatever allows me to not wake up early, travel, live life, do things. So that was what I wanted to. Finish grad school, began my professorship at a career institution. So I was teaching intro to hospitality and working with students in career services. So merging multiple things that I was passionate about. Started my business on the side, and now the year is 2016. So started my business on the side, speaking, training, and then I added in coaching because people somehow thought I knew what I was doing as a business person because I was my own everything. Like I pitched myself for speaking gigs, I planned the travel, I negotiated the contracts. Like I just learned all the things because I didn't know you could hire people to do it. I mean, the first time I spoke, I didn't know people pay people. So, like, I just didn't know. So I didn't know what I didn't know. So I was just doing the things, right? And then people kept asking questions. I was like, oh, snap, I got to charge you for this because you're not getting my time after hours for free. So I started helping people with starting their businesses and things such as that. 2016, my mom became very ill. I was tired of traveling back and forth to South Carolina to check on her. So I just resigned from my job, and I was like, we're going to figure this thing. We're going to figure this thing out. I was young. My expenses were not too high. So it was a risk, but it wasn't the biggest risk. I was like, I'm in my early 20s. I have multiple degrees, tons of experiences, tons of networking. I was in a lot of professional organizations. I go to conferences. If you cannot tell, I will talk to anybody. So I'm like, if it doesn't work out with this business thing, I'm pretty sure I can find a job. I may not love it, but I can find one, right? And there have been some times along the way that I have either taken a job for a short-term time or taken a contract that wasn't necessarily, I wasn't an employee, but I felt like it. But I love that, leveraging that, because I don't really like listening to people that much, But for the last 8 years, I've run my business full time, and I served as a caregiver to my amazing mom until she passed away in February. So that was my career journey. So along the way, the business has consisted of me speaking. I was a full-time speaker for about 5.5 of those years. I pivoted very heavily during COVID to do more project management, marketing management, things like that, because of course, I had a lot of in-person gigs. We were not in person doing anything, and a lot was going on at home. My mom was extremely ill, so switching to virtual just wasn't something that was gonna work for me at that time. If we were in person, I was able to fly out from my environment, but being inside of my environment, it just wasn't gonna work for me. So I did a few virtual events over the course of 2020 to 2022, but not a ton. And then through my pivot, I found something that I love more in this season. So I don't do a lot of these anymore, but I hope that this one was good for you all. So that has been the bulk of my career journey. I did hospitality, I did higher education, I've been a faculty member at some institutions, and I've been a full-time entrepreneur for 8 years. So a lot in these 32 years, but it has been quite eventful. I've met thousands of amazing people, and it has been a career. My career decisions have definitely been very hard because I felt like, especially in my early entrepreneur days, I was judged, not by my parents, but just other, family members and people that I expected to just be like, oh, go Tab, I'm team. Like, they had been team Tab through like everything else, but because what I was developing didn't look like what they had in mind or did not look like what was, I guess, traditional, the support shifted and it hurt my feelings because some of them were people that were always like on my team. So I had to really lean into like, this journey is for me. And a lot of times during this journey, I was definitely going through a lot. So I had to stay focused on the goal, but not necessarily the path to the goal. So hope that answered the journey to here. I can take one more question and or comment. I hope I did not bore you too bad. I hope that this was engaging. I hope that you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for having me.